Welcome to a very special bonus episode of the kbbreview podcast. I'm your host, Andy Davies, and today we're looking at one of the areas of kitchen design that I think doesn't get the recognition it deserves, and that's the panel finishes that make up the furniture. Now, when you actually think about it, there's hundreds of colours, textures, grains, and patterns all following and often setting the trends before they ever get near being made into furniture, and they do it at a speed that is actually quite mind-boggling. It's such an important part of the design journey that it definitely needs more attention. So I'll be talking to Lauren Barker, the head of marketing and design for Lawcris. But first, yes, today's episode is brought to you with the support of our very good friends at Lawcris. They lead the field in wood-based panel products, laminates and edgings with big brands such as Emporio Skin, Kronospan and many more. With over 40 vehicles in their fleet, they can provide next-day delivery on all stock products, and you can find out all about them at lawcris.co.uk. That's lawcris.co.uk, and that link is in the episode description. So down the line, here we have Lauren Barker from Lawcris. Hello, Lauren.
Hello.
Hello. Now, I seem to remember the last time we did this, you were in a cupboard.
And I am again in a cupboard.
Well, I can match you this time because I am also in a cupboard in Taylor's Towers. So we are two cupboards talking to each other, which is quite sad, isn't it? But there you go. Let's start with the obvious question here. Lauren, for those living under a rock, just quickly describe Lawcris and what you do.
We are a distributor of wood-based panel products, including MFCs, laminates, matching edging, veneers, etc. And we distribute all the way around the UK.
Amazing. Now, look, I've got you on here today to talk about a side of your sector, a side of your industry that I find so interesting. And it's actually a bit of an unsung hero, I think. So I think it's worth shining a bit of a spotlight on it. And that's how people come up with the actual designs of the board, because they might not think of this when they look at these products, but someone has designed them. There's a team of people that design them.
Yes, yeah. It's a great question. Who is behind all this and how does it even happen? I mean, I've worked in this industry for about 10 years and I get to speak to quite a lot of the product development managers from these big decorative board manufacturers. And they're really fascinating to talk to about trends, why something is in the kitchen, like a kitchen front, or what texture is being used and what colours it's taking off in a bedroom design or something. But I think a lot of us do sit in the dark, and it definitely, me included, there's a gap of knowledge that sits in between the person that comes up with this new trend, this designer who will predict these trends, and the manufacturer that takes on that inspiration to create the trend. And I just think to myself, how does it all work? The UK can be quite unique in terms of trends. We differ quite dramatically compared to Europe, say. And at the moment, let's take that very popular slat wall craze that seems to be everywhere currently. I mean, I don't know whether you got to go around the KBB show, but nearly every stand were nodding their hat. Nodding their hat to this slat wall or groove panel kind of look. And I just think to myself, how can manufacturers come up with something that quickly from a trend? And where do they get their inspiration from? I think it just must be so difficult.
Yeah, and because of the nature of what you're dealing with here, it's the next step up from the raw material itself. I mean, it's literally turning trees into board. And so they have to be right at the front of the trend. They're the first to them. And there are teams of people out there monitoring and anticipating what those trends are. And as you say, it's so important. It has to move so quickly, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does. I think that's the thing that gets me, is that I think trends move so fast, and there's definitely been a shift in terms of the speed and the trend and how it's changed over the years that I've been in the industry. I don't think it's necessarily that people are bored with what's available on the market. I think it's more that people have access to more global culture, and that's hugely reshaped how people approach their interior design. And I think their tastes and needs are really constantly evolving with this. The ability to actually travel to all these different countries and experience all these diverse cultures firsthand. I think their expectations are so high from manufacturers to supply this sort of immense variety of trends. And it's the speed in which these manufacturers can respond to these trends. And I think that's really, really key. We're finding, I think, a lot of the key manufacturers are not doing the sort of 4-year trends anymore. They're reducing it down to more like 2 years. And some manufacturers like Kronospan are sort of bringing out decors on a yearly basis to keep up with those trends. And I think since lockdown as well, I mean, we can't forget lockdown, the demand for customization or personalization is also on the rise, where people were stuck in their houses and found spaces for themselves, like a little library in the corner, or they created, this beautiful little music room, just the corner of tranquility. People have grown to want decor boards that allow them to express their individuality and create spaces that, reflect their unique tastes and lifestyles. So yeah, manufacturers have got a really big role to offer a diverse range of these options with colours, patterns, textures, finishes to, cater to everybody. So there requires a really deep understanding of consumer preferences. And I think it's that adaptability in the manufacturing process and the speeds in which they can adapt. Yeah, it's really key.
As you say, technology has played a massive part in that speed. And you've got some proper first-hand experience of, I guess, the breadth of that design journey, haven't you?
I do.
You were forced to go to Malta, weren't you? Which must have been a total nightmare.
Really forced. I know, it was horrific, really. I was so lucky to be invited out to, it was the Kronospan design studio in Malta. I think it was in March this year, actually. It was a little while ago. And call me sad, but it literally was one of my favourite days ever of working at Lawcris. When you pulled up outside the building in Malta, there was nothing, absolutely nothing to lead you to believe that there was some creativity going on inside. It really was just quite a, bland standard Malta building. But then we would walk down this driveway into this bunker, and I was with my colleague Dean, who's the product development manager at Lawcris, and we just looked at each other and we just smiled. Oh my goodness me, Andrew, it was like stepping into a treasure trove, but instead of like gold and jewels, you were greeted by this incredible eclectic array of wood species, stones, marbles. Oh my goodness me, it was amazing. I was literally like a kid in a toy shop. And we met the lovely Mark Bircham, who's like the captain out there. He's like he coordinates all the design side of things. And he gave us a tour around and all these juicy details about, these products that they sourced. And, he just casually pulled out this old battered deep reddish flooring and, casually said, this is just Ralph Lauren's old flooring, and I was just like, oh, this is just incredible.
Not like a Ralph Lauren design, like actually Ralph's floorboard.
His actual floorboards that obviously he was getting rid of, and someone's seen them and thought, that might be a good sort of colour and texture. And it even had the square holes in from the pegs that held it down to the floor. And he showed us this Gold Harbour oak. He pulled it out, this battered piece of wood, and explained that this had sat underneath the Venice Harbour. And when they retrieved it, it had holes and things from worms and creatures and stuff that had obviously buried its way in. And you could see that it was the inspiration behind the Gold Harbour oak. You could see it visually. But again, there's so much work that goes on between that and getting it to the real final design. And luckily for us, we got to find out.
And you got to play with it, make your own, didn't you?
I did. This is probably the best bit. We were invited to partake in this hands-on design experience guided by experts that, we transformed this raw walnut plank into this finished masterpiece. And to see it in process, one of the experts, and I will add this, he's actually an extra in Gladiators 2 because it was filmed in Malta and he was one of the extras. So if you see on Gladiators 2, look out for Emmanuel, I will add. He basically took us through the process. We crafted these veneers, we arranged them in a pattern, then we got some sort of products to be able to enhance the wood grain and adjust the tones and unveil these like natural hues of the material. And then they got transferred into a digital design. Imperfections were corrected using software. And then the next morning they sent us the renders in a bathroom design to show us how quick they can turn something around. And they called it Barker's Nuts, which I thought, perfect. If you know me, totally me.
What an experience, and what a way of really demonstrating what that process is. I'm going to be a total nerd here. They've got literally bits of wood and then goes through a process, and out the other end comes this board. What is that process? What are the steps? They must have like an ultra high-res scanner. How does that work?
Yeah, so once the veneers have been put into place, or once they've taken a material, because it doesn't have to be veneers, it might be marble. And we've got to remember that all those materials are really natural. So they'll have natural patterns, and it's not necessarily something they'll want in the final design. So once they have been scanned, they will have to be manipulated to create what that trend needs to be. Yeah, this scanner, it had like, 8 different angles that could, in one pass, could throw shadows in all these different directions. It was very technical. It was way over my head, but it was all sort of there ready to go. And then, down at the other end of the scale, once it has been created, they again can render it into different designs. And that's the sort of point where you can manipulate it so that it does come as close to that trend as you want. And these trends isn't just from raw wood or stone. And I didn't realize this until Mark Bircham had actually explained it. They actually have commercial artists that are across the globe that they rely on to produce on-trend designs. And as soon as he said this, they've got these beautiful decors called the flows in the Kronospan collection, which is like a fusion between concrete and like a metal appearance. It's nothing really that you could source. But then he said, it isn't just to do with that. It's actually wood grain designs as well that commercial artists create. You know, I had to think of it like it's almost like a wallpaper designer, I guess. But instead of creating wallpaper designs, they're creating wood grain patterns for furniture. And I think my naivety led me to believe that every design came from the real thing, but it's not. These commercial artists, they're everywhere across the country. So he's always on the lookout for inspiration, constantly observing the world around him, ready for that cue that there's a emergence of a trend or something. I think he's just basically trying to seek out the big idea, because if a trend comes round that is something that he hasn't got in stock, he can't afford to wait 3 months until, he can buy a piece of, pink walnut, which was one of the things he had there that he hasn't used yet in a design, but he's bought it in ready to go. And I just thought, wow, you've got to be really on it. And I think Kronospan's ability to translate predicting the abstract concepts of color palettes, material preferences, or design aesthetics, it's nothing short of remarkable. And with this design studio, they're able to cater to market demands and prevailing trends of the future. It really is it was astonishing.
What I find so fascinating about it is because it is basically a raw material, the amount of versatility required out of it is enormous, right? So the predictions, the anticipations, it has to be pretty universal. So there's different needs, I guess, for interior designers want something different to architects, who want something different to furniture manufacturers, and then each one of them could be different in each country. The scope of it is unbelievable.
It is. I want to say there is something that I can define that makes all this magic happen, but it isn't. And there isn't anything that I can say, it just must be, a superbly delicate balance of creativity, market insight that people are gaining, and technological innovation. That's the only thing that I can sort of describe it as. It must be like the perfect storm. Witnessing Kronospan integrate those emerging trends into their product offering, it is just akin to observing a master craftsman at work. I really don't think there's an equation that gives you the solution to how they can predict everything and cater to every single market, which I guess is why they do have to be able to adapt to different, like the UK, as I said, is a very, very different market to Europe. And we have to have our own specific collections that are different to Europe that they have to cater for. And I guess that's what they have to keep an eye on. Is mind-blowing.
It is, and they're building it on ever-shifting sands, aren't they? Because just when you think they've got it sorted, the whole new thing has to turn around and come up with something again because the trends have changed again. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And again, when you you can get a little peek behind the curtain like this, when you really start thinking about it, the scale of it is absolutely unbelievable. And it's so impressive, I think, that so many trends will come out of that to begin with. As always, thanks so much for your time today. You're an incredibly important part of this supply chain, of course, what you do, but I think your enthusiasm for it just demonstrates what a fantastic bit of the market this is, and it doesn't actually get the credit it deserves, I don't think. It
doesn't. It's amazing. Really amazing.
It's been great to get your perspective on it, as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we shall now leave our respective cupboards.
Let's do that. It's really hot in here.
There'll be people outside wondering why we're talking to ourselves.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks so much. Cheers, Andrew.